3 years ago today, I moved home because I was too sick to take care of myself. I'm 33, so I was 30 when that happened. I'd gotten to the point where I could no longer work. I could no longer go to the grocery store and buy my own groceries. I could no longer listen to people speak because I was too sensitive to sound. I could no longer listen to music. I could no longer teach my classes. I could no longer make art. I was too sick to function. And so I moved home in hopes that I would only be here for 6 months, that I would only take a little while, that all I needed to do was rest, and then I would recuperate and go back to my life, because I couldn't have imagined that there was any other option. But that's not what happened. I moved home and I got sicker, and I got sicker, and then I got better, and then I got sicker. And this last time when I got sicker, I ended up in bed for a year, almost totally paralyzed, unable to speak, unable to lift my arm to scratch my face, unable to pick my own nose, unable to brush my own teeth, unable to walk to the bathroom. The story of how that particular part of my illness happened is, I believe, is fairly unique, but it's important that I share it because there may be someone else out there that can relate to some part of what I'm saying, and maybe we'll gain some insight into what has happened to them and why they're there. But I figured out that I had adrenal fatigue, and all of my symptoms were adrenal related. When I read about what the adrenals do, I could relate to everything that a lack of adrenal hormones, a lack of cortisol, I could relate to all of those symptoms. And I decided to start taking a adrenal glandular made from cows, and I started taking it at a very low dose, only 3 drops per day, and I immediately felt 1,000,000 times better. But unfortunately, I had one serious side effect. And at that point, I didn't realize how serious that side effect was going to be. But I had more energy, I wasn't starving all the time, I could have people talk around me and I wouldn't die because sound, I was so sensitive to sound that it hurt. It physically hurt my body. I could feel it in my nerves. My sleep improved. Prior to taking the adrenal glandular, I would stay up all night, starving for 2 weeks out of every month. And so I started this adrenal glandular, and all of those symptoms lessened. I felt so much better, except suddenly my joints started to hurt. Started with my knees and my ankles. And what I soon realized, that it was actually my muscles that were spasming and they were pulling on my joints. So I wasn't willing to give up what I had gained from the adrenal glandular. I thought for sure that I'd be able to figure out what was going on. At least that was my hope. And so I just kept taking the adrenal glandular, trying to figure out why I was having muscle spasms. I knew that the adrenals play a role in mineral metabolism. And I knew that low magnesium and calcium and potassium all could cause muscle spasms. So I was researching and researching and researching, but because I had adrenal fatigue, I was afraid of potassium, because usually when you have adrenal fatigue, you are low sodium and you tend to have high potassium. So even though I did a urine test and it showed that I was peeing out massive amounts of potassium, I was still afraid to take it. in any amount, really. I was trying to increase the potassium with things like juice, like vegetable juice, but it wasn't enough. The spasms kept getting worse and worse and worse, but all this time I felt so much better overall. So I started massaging myself with a Theracane and different kinds of tools. I had a ball that I put in a sock and massaged myself against the wall. But every day I woke up and I'd have a new thing, a new symptom where I was stuck. My shoulder would be spasming, or my neck would be spasming, or my chest would be spasming, or my leg, or my whatever. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And finally, I realized I needed potassium, but at that point, I had done enough damage to my skeletal structure by having these ongoing spasms every day for 4 months that I actually started to have some neurological symptoms. And it started with, I was painting. I finally felt well enough to paint. I had about 2 weeks of getting to make my art again. And I was painting, and I was painting this really fine line, and my head did this twitch thing, which it had started to do, and I went to take a nap, and I woke up, and I could not lift my arms. Woo! I could not lift my arms. And my arms stayed weak after that. And then a week later, I suddenly couldn't read. And my eyes were very, very sensitive to light. I couldn't sit in front of the television and watch anything move. I would get severe headaches just from trying to read something or trying to watch the television. And so I was very concerned, but I didn't know what to do. And then about a week later, I started to feel like I couldn't breathe when I walked. And I was getting hiccups, and I was belching really bad. And all of these strange symptoms were happening. It felt like something was squeezing my chest when I would breathe, and none of it made any sense to me. But, well, basically I screwed up my spinal structure. I screwed up my skeletal structure from all of those muscle spasms, and then I created trigger points, and I was stuck, all tweaked out. But I didn't know that, and so I went to bed. I thought I was anemic, and I was anemic, so I started taking iron. I thought that if I take iron and I get unanemic, I'll get my energy back, and I'll be able to breathe and read and lift my arms. But because it wasn't caused by the anemia, it was actually caused by my skeletal structure getting all tweaked out from those muscle spasms from low potassium. When I went to bed, ultimately it was just going to make me worse, because being in bed certainly doesn't help your structure at all. So there I was, landed in bed, not really knowing why I was there, how I was there, or what to do about it. I had a feeling that it might have to do with my neck, only because I'd read enough to know that if you have trouble with your arms, sometimes that is related to nerves in your neck. Okay, I'm just going to stop there, and I'll finish the story in the next video.